Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, March 3rd, 2022, and today we're going to be talking about President Donald Trump hinting that he's going to be running for president again in 2024 in his CPAC speech, the Conservative Political Action Conference, that took place in Florida this past weekend, in which there were a bunch of different speakers, Governor Ron DeSantis, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, a bunch of different people who represented the conservative ideology that decided to speak at CPAC this past weekend. And with this major type of display of a hint towards a 2024 bid, the attention has shifted back on towards President Trump. Now, some political analysts have said that this was President Trump deciding to sort of shift the narrative away from Ukraine and back onto himself, back to the American media, building up based off this comment. Had there not been an international crisis, I do think that many more media companies would have reported on President Trump's comments during CPAC. He called Vladimir Putin smart, while simultaneously saying that he will be going for another bid in 2024. So what did he exactly say? Donald Trump said that on November 2024, they will find out like never before. Says, we did it twice and we'll do it again. The twice referring to the 2016 and the 2020 election, the 2020 election in which Donald Trump inaccurately and falsely states that he won the presidential election, states that in 2016 he won, in 2020 he won, and that we're going to be doing it again a third time. So in a sense, he's recognizing that he did lose the election, that he would need to do something a third time. But looking at this statement, we're going to be doing it a third time, Donald Trump has indicated clearly that he is going to be running again in 2024. You don't say things like this without any type of, backing up of your claims. And I don't think that this is in any way, how do I put this? Him trying to just, stir the pot. In one sense, I do see that Donald Trump is trying to get the media attention on himself, but I think he's being very honest with us in the fact that he's going to be running again in 2024. Usually speaking, presidential candidates who lose, like Hillary Clinton did, and Mitt Romney did, and John McCain did, they shoot down any other type of consideration that they might be running again. You don't run losing candidates and win. It has rarely happened in American history, and the last time it happened, besides, Joe Biden, was, I think, Richard Nixon. Looking at the fact that, Donald Trump is here trying to vie for a third term after being rejected by voters 4 years prior is also something that is viewed as negative. People can choose to run for re-election, choose to run again after losing a nomination, but if you win that nomination, especially as the incumbent, and lose, that's where it gets tricky. And that's where you would see many people advise against a rerun. But President Trump has made it very clear. He values himself a lot more than he values the traditional Republican Party, and I think many Republicans do as well. Donald Trump is the future of the Republican Party, whether establishment Republicans like it or not. The fact is, President Trump's ideology, President Trump's agenda is what is winning on the primary ballot box, and consequently will win this November. In many of these close and competitive races, even if there are extreme President Trump pro-type candidates on the GOP side, even in some swing states that might have voted for Joe Biden, it is entirely possible they elect those Republicans in a pushback on President Biden and his low approval rating. Looking at President Trump making this claim, I'm not at all surprised. I've been saying this for quite some time now. Donald Trump is going to be running for president of the United States again, and it makes sense that he would. He didn't exactly lose by a super large margin in 2020, and while personally speaking, if I was to be advising him, I would not recommend that he decides to run again. But if he does, it would be a point to say that he did do wonders for the GOP in the Rust Belt. He did wonders for the GOP in other regions across the United States, and based off of the shifts from the 2016 to the 2020 election, it looks like he did them wonders when it came down to the Hispanic vote. So President Trump does have some positive parts of this entire situation, does have some positive things to really be understood in terms of what he did for the Republican Party in 2016, what he was able to flip, what exactly his impact was on the American public, what his impact was on the Republican Party. So President Trump definitely, on one hand, does have an argument to be made to the statewide and national electorate on the GOP side that, hey, you should nominate me again. I was revolutionary. I flipped 3 states that hadn't gone to the GOP since Ronald Reagan. I did wonders for this party, and you should repay me by choosing me again in 2024. But of course, that issue of electability is raised. While he did lose by a narrow amount, he still lost, right? He still lost Wisconsin, still lost Michigan, still lost Pennsylvania, lost Georgia, lost Arizona, on top of Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Maine. all states that were competitive back in 2016. So what I see from this is that President Trump truly did not perform well enough in 2020 for there to be an argument to be made that he wins in 2024. I think right now President Trump would do well. I think President Trump would do well against Joe Biden, considering that Joe Biden is unpopular and is actually doing worse than President Trump when it comes down to favorability rating. However, this is not an indicator of where this might be 2 years down the line. You see, the approval rating of a president is very much fluctuating. Looking at the difference between the approval rating for Obama at this point in time and now, you're not going to see much of a difference. President Obama was disapproved of heading into the 2010 midterms, and consequently, the GOP won. But by the time he reached 2012, he was approved of. By the time Obama left office, he was approved of by 17 points more of the nation than he was disapproved of. What you find here is that at one point Obama was down 13 and then ended up being up 17. That is a 30-point swing across the nation, and it's one that we can expect to happen for Joe Biden, at least in some type of avenue. I do not think that Joe Biden will remain unpopular throughout the remainder of his presidency, and he already has an upper hand on President Trump in the regard that he was approved of at least some point in his presidency for a consistent period of time. The longest that President Trump was approved of, according to FiveThirtyEight and any other reputable polling source, he was approved of for about a week and a half, right after being inaugurated. So looking at President Trump's chances right now, sure, there might be some type of case to be made there now. But in terms of what will happen in 2024, President Biden will be out and about more. He will have more opportunities to speak to the American public. He will be able to win debates, potentially lose debates, make arguments, send out ads, and a lot of those things will end up boosting his approval rating, as they did for Obama, as they did for Biden in the 2020 election. Joe Biden was disapproved of across the nation heavily until the Democratic National Convention. The DNC focused primarily on painting Joe Biden as a family guy, as someone who was an average American, and it worked super well. Not to say that every American watched the Democratic National Convention, because by no means did they, but the ads that were sent out in conjunction with the DNC really reshaped the American public's view of Joe Biden. In just 2 weeks, Joe Biden went being disapproved of by 7, 8, 9 points across the nation to being approved of by 7, 8, 9. You're talking about 14, 15, 16-point shifts relative to where they were 2 weeks prior. All because the Democratic Party did this character-building campaign, and it worked effectively. That, again, will happen in 2024. I think Donald Trump might be too much of a risk, because he's doing things such as this, where in the same speech where he is indicating that he's going to be running again in 2024, he calls Vladimir Putin smart. With the entire nation and the entire world unified against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it never looks good to praise the person that is being the dictator, in the sense that they are leading this invasion. When you have 70% of the nation that wants President Biden to do more, when you have 70% of the nation that supports what Joe Biden has done so far, but again, thinks it should go to a further extent, when you have a Republican presidential nominee, one that is assumed to do so, like President Trump, winning the straw poll again in CPAC by an extremely considerably high amount, winning 59% of all respondents there, before even announcing a bid for president, what you are finding is that these attacks, these things that the Democratic Party used in the past, will also be relevant now. And the statements that President Trump is making across the campaign trail, across different conservative political action conferences, these things are not good looks for President Trump. And they will absolutely be used against him, as they sort of are right now. President Trump has had the luxury, the privilege to not be the center focus of American politics. Without such national media attention on him, he's able to rise his approval rating. Not by much. His favorability rating is still just 42%, but it does help him. When the entire media was hounding on him because he was the president of the United States, when the entire, ads that were sent out on YouTube, on social media, on television, on radio were all bashing him, that's when the approval rating obviously was worse than it is right now. And I think that is truly what Donald Trump is benefiting from right now. The reason why he is doing well is because the media is not talking about him as much as they are talking about Biden. The media has turned on Biden. As much as people would like to say the media has a leftward skew, the media has an unfair bias in favor of the Democratic Party, take a look at any of their coverage right now. I mean, truly speaking, and saying this from an analytical point of view, Joe Biden has a bunch of unfair attacks on him, the same way that Donald Trump did. I said that Donald Trump was not to blame for COVID-19. I think that, looking at what we saw in terms of the explosion of the virus, maybe there could have been some precautions taken ahead of time. That is all up for discussion. I think that is fair game. But what I am going to say is that the virus itself obviously wasn't President Donald Trump's fault. And it isn't Joe Biden's fault either. But both of them are going to be blamed and were blamed or are currently being blamed for COVID-19 numbers. When the Omicron variant surged across the nation, Joe Biden was at fault. When COVID-19 original strain surged across the nation, Donald Trump was at fault. And these are sort of the narratives that are built up because of the fact that President Trump and President Biden are the people who are at the head of the nation. So they will get blamed and benefit also from anything good happening or anything bad happening across the nation. And I think that's why right now that Donald Trump is doing well. But moving forward, I think we should really be cautious about President Trump becoming this nominee. It could be potentially a redemption arc for President Trump. He could potentially win in 2024 and serve until 2029. But that is a big if. It is a big risk for the GOP when they have plenty of other candidates who would honestly do very well. Let's say, for instance, Ron DeSantis gets the nomination. Would he do as well? I'm sure he would do better in Florida. I'm sure he would definitely do better in Florida. His appeal to the voters here is unmatched. But Florida is Florida. It's already a red state. Where else can Ron DeSantis do well in, or at least match Donald Trump's margins? He could probably do as well in Georgia or Arizona. In fact, maybe slightly better. Ron DeSantis, while very much an embodiment of President Trump, does not come across as radical, as someone who is an extremist, whereas Donald Trump does to many of these voters. There's a reason why these voters adored Mitt Romney, adored John McCain, but pushed back on President Trump even in 2016. When you see how Arizona narrowed down, when you see how Georgia narrowed down, there is something to be said about that. It was not because Hillary Clinton was this exceptional Democratic candidate. It was a combination of demographics in conjunction with the fact that President Trump was just simply a bad nominee for the GOP in those states. And thus, you saw it shift again, relative from 2016 to 2020, in which the Democratic Party won in both of these states. I think Ron DeSantis would be able to hold on to nearly all of the Trump electorate while expanding, because he comes across as someone who is not radical, as someone who is not an extremist. The Democratic Party has tried so hard in the state of Florida to paint him as an extremist, but voters there still love him. The polls show 20-point leads for Ron DeSantis, 15-point leads, 10-point leads. Nothing is showing a close race in the state of Florida besides one outlier poll. And I think that is definitely a testament to his electability. And it isn't just Ron DeSantis who could capture in the Trump base while also making gains, being the more moderate, more traditional Republican. The next person is Nikki Haley, who could absolutely do that. Potentially Mike Pence. Looking at these names, Kristi Noem could be a strong candidate. Ted Cruz could be a strong candidate. Tom Cotton, Marco Rubio, right? These are people who I think that, looking at our 2024 list here, would likely perform better than Donald Trump would. While Donald Trump did offer the GOP, again, flips in states that they otherwise could never enjoy in years past. Between 2012 and 2016, you can see some major shifts across the nation. Iowa shifted by 15, Wisconsin by 8, Michigan by 10, Pennsylvania by 6, New Hampshire by 5, Nevada by 4, New Mexico by 2, North Carolina by 2, Florida by 2. You are looking at, Ohio by 11. You are looking at major shifts across the nation relative from 2012 and 2016, which is good for President Trump in terms of what he can provide to the GOP. However, there are other nominees who can do just as well in those states while also expanding. And that's Ron DeSantis. That's Nikki Haley. The only problem for them is making a name for themselves. The reason why Donald Trump is being floated as this frontrunner is, of course, because he is the former president. He has the polling numbers to win the nomination again. It's not because he's the most electable or the most competitive candidate the GOP can put up. It is only because he is the former president and can offer that alone. He can offer what the GOP was unable to do in 2012 and 2008 and 2004 and 2000, 96, 92, even 88, where they could not win those three pivotal states in the blue wall, whereas Donald Trump cracked it, and nearly cracked, additionally, the state of Minnesota. What we found was that President Trump did very well relative to other GOP candidates, but I think now his time has passed. As much as he would like to be president again, it probably isn't going to happen. This 3.7% lead is not enough to convince me that by the time we actually hit a general election where President Trump has announced and declared his bid for President of the United States, that he would be doing just as well. I think that it will definitely take a hit, and as more media attention goes back onto President Trump, he's going to end up getting disapproved of the same way. Right now, the media is more focused on Biden, so of course Biden is going to be more unpopular. At the end of the day, and I've said that multiple times now, President Trump should not be the Republican nominee in 2024. It is just really a bad look for the GOP to renominate him again. And as much as he has said, we're going to do it a third time, you're probably going to repeat 2020 in the sense that you're probably going to lose the presidential election, which of course is an even worse look for President Trump and the Republican Party. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.